My name's Dame Stephanie Shirley, and I proudly introduce this Priors Court team presentation. To mark its Silver Jubilee, we're going to talk about Priors Court past, present, and future. The school is a 52-week boarding with up to 70 pupils aged 5 to 19 and 20 students aged 19 to 25 in a young adult provision. They're learning life skills. It's located near Newbury in Berkshire, and it has local authority-funded pupils from throughout the country. I was the founding patron in 1998-9, and we'll talk about how the school came into being. I'll be followed by Sue Piper, Priors Court Director of Learning. She's been central to the school's development for 20 years, and she will describe how the school has evolved to meet its pupils' educational needs. Sue will be followed by Chief Executive Ryan Campbell, who will speak about where our autism world is going. So let me begin. Back in 1962, I founded a software company which eventually allowed me to found 3 autism charities: Kingwood, Priors Court, and the Autistic Research Charity. Why autism? Our son Giles was a beautiful baby. I know every mother thinks that. And easier than I'd expected. Then at 2.5, he lost the little speech he had and turned into a wild, unmanageable toddler. Not the terrible twos. The bombshell diagnosis was that he had regressive autism. The bad times began. I got him into the Walnuts, an excellent weekly boarding primary school for non-communicating children, but could not find any secondary schooling, so Giles stayed home with me. Then, when he was 13, I had a good old-fashioned nervous breakdown, and both of us were hospitalized. Then, the family sacrifice. It was Giles or me. So Giles stayed in a locked ward of one of the so-called subnormality hospitals. After 11 sad years, the quality of care degenerated, and my company being successful by then, we determined to look after Giles again ourselves, this time with paid help. So Giles was the first resident in the first home of what became my first charity, Autism at Kingwood. 30 years later, Kingwood supports 120 autistic adults. It was with Kingwood that in 1997, I visited the Higashi School for Autistic Pupils in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was inspired by its positive approach. Would Giles have been different if he'd attended such a school? I came home determined to provide a UK facility for pupils with profound autism like my Giles. The Department for Education linked me up with an educational consultant. His feasibility study spelled out space and costing requirements. He advised strongly against an historic building and concluded from the demand and supply that we should site ourselves in the Midlands of England. His study set out more than enough to get property consultants on the search. They showed me several possibilities, and my responses helped to refine the requirements. And so it went until they put forward Priors Court, which had previously been a prep school. It was a listed Grade 2 star building not in the Midlands at all, but near Newbury in Berkshire. The property consultants made our bid in month 5, and the Price Court freehold was finally acquired for £15 million in month 10. In parallel with this exciting transaction, the steering group, which met monthly on Sunday afternoons, shortlisted architects. The choice was largely determined by the personality of the lead partner, who cared about what the steering group had set out to create. This was to develop a co-ed 52-week residential school for children within their families, with a pupil profile modelled on my Giles and a business plan to break even in 5 years. Places were to be allocated on a basis of which child needs this most. Then we started to build new space and modify existing space at a cost of another 15 million, including startup losses. We opened with 2 pupils and 28 staff. A major 1960s wing eventually had to be pulled down. A tiny 1950s building proved to be listed. A glass house so decrepit that my inclination was to just push it over and take it away in a wheelbarrow was also listed, so had to be restored sensitively and to safety standards. And today, it's used for pupils' market gardening. Asbestos was found. Historic difficulties with drains were disclosed. People working late at night reported sounds of running water, which linked with a massive disputed water bill for an empty site with just a few staff making cups of tea and flushing the toilet. 2 staircases were unsuitable for vulnerable pupils. One had to be totally rebuilt, and the other one was blocked off. The hideous gymnasium that some past aberrant planner had allowed was halved, and a sensory swimming pool now shares the space. Antiquated radiators and several splendid fireplaces with corners too sharp for safety had to be boxed in. The panelling of what is now the training centre caused a lot of problems. It's not especially beautiful, but it is oak and it is listed. After several treatments to lighten its gloom, we were satisfied. Then fireproofing turned it dark again. Giles had sensitized me to health and safety issues. Now I learned how design featured in child protection. What surprised me most was the enormous storage needed by a school and the separation required between residential and educational areas. The responsibilities of a 55-acre estate were also onerous, and its problems were a challenge. Archaeologists observed every excavation in the hope of ancient findings. Trees as well as buildings were protected. A formal paved garden had to be completely relaid and its pond made safe. A similar garden was created anew with plants appropriate to the building's age, which is 1784. Yards and yards of hedging grew and grew. Most difficult of all was stopping heavy delivery lorries going over the roots of the driveway's elms. We were too late to employ the principal in the planned timescale, so for 4 months had to make do with consultancy access to the successful applicant, recruited with the help of pro bono headhunters. He started his formal employment at the top end of the salary range for principals, with 20% bonus for various achievements, such as opening to schedule. For the first time, we had someone who had run the school. The Priors Court Foundation was formally incorporated in month 7 and first met in month 9, with a trustee board largely morphed from the steering group. This included the then chief executive of the NAS, 2 people from Kingwood, my legal advisor, a strategist, and Francesca Happe, national expert in child protection. Architects, quantity surveyors, etc. were appointed in month 10, with the builder engaged in month 14, plus a local contractor used to, for example, modify some spaces fit to use as a working office. We hired a porter cabin, which we used for interviewing staff. Structural engineers and specialists were everywhere. Towards the end, there were 200 workmen on site in a rush to avoid some of our onerous penalty clauses. We used a firm that we'd commissioned in Kingwood to dress the school's 300 windows. We contracted a professional purchasing manager who acquired all the school's contents and somehow managed to schedule delivery of the whole lot in the 3 weeks between the builders finishing and the school opening in September 1999. That was a mere 22 months from start. And finally, I beautified the whole site by adding a collection of contemporary art. Mine was the easy prelude to the school's being. Thank you.
Following on from Dame Stephanie Shirley, I realise how lucky I am to have worked at Priors Court School for over 20 years. I'm the Director of Learning, overseeing the learning across all age groups and through the extended day. I'm in a privileged position to influence and embed good practice at Priors Court. I'd first like to talk about how Priors Court meets the needs of young people like Giles and how it has a specific approach to learning. One of the first key areas is actually the delivery of our framework, and this is done through autism best practice. We consistently use our own approach, which we've named the Prior approach. It consists of and recognises the importance of areas such as exercise, sensory regulation, and communication. The structured approach to all areas has developed to support young people to understand expectations, to help reduce anxiety, and to help them achieve in all aspects of their life. The Prior approach is our methodology. We've used autism best practice over the many years, and we continue to adapt and develop as we learn what works best for each unique young person. Any learning that is delivered is done so through a structured and visual approach. The approach itself recognises that a day needs to consist of meaningful activities and that learning in context is the most powerful tool. Learning isn't just sat at a desk, but through being able to access the outdoors regularly, to remain regulated, motivated, and interested in lots of new experiences. The approach expands the extended day to ensure that young people learn to generalise their skills into other environments. The approach isn't used in just a school environment. It is in the home environment, as well as at work, within the community, and importantly, the family home. Designing of a learning framework to focus on functional lifelong skills. Being able to consider what needs to be taught rather than following a national framework is the most important step in ensuring the young people gain the right skills for their future. This is for their time at Priors Court and beyond. We identified our 7 areas of learning based on outcomes of health, happiness, independence and work. We wanted to consider all the key areas that were needed for later life, as well as addressing some of the really specific high needs the young people have, such as communication. Our seven areas address some of the challenges that the young people have when they come to us, and then as they grow and develop, we look to the future and the key goals. We start by looking at their ability to complete everyday daily living tasks. We look at their actual behaviour challenges and we support those through a multidisciplinary approach. Communication is often a huge barrier for young people, and we make sure we give them the tools and teach ways for them to further understand the importance of communication. We build on that through the extended day. Most young people with complex needs have no sense of danger, and that could be everything from crossing a road safe to being safe online. One of our key areas of learning is keeping me safe, and we ensure that we address many of those different difficulties. Learning how to stay healthy might not be a priority goal for every young person when they first join us, but actually we all understand that for good quality of life and later on in life, we need to ensure that we participate in exercise and that we have good, healthy eating habits, as well as understanding how to manage our basic needs. Then when we get onto academics, and for some young people, that's just learning functional academics, learning how to use money, how to weigh something, learning how to count X amount of items out. We see these as the real building blocks to later on being able to generalise those skills into functional and into vocational situations. So a young person might have learnt money when they need to learn how to spend money. They need to learn the value of money, and then they need to visit a shop and see how it works in practice and how prepared they can be. The 7 areas of learning help us address some of the really specific high needs that the young people have. The most important aspects is that we ensure the building blocks are really small steps that allow for skills to be acquired, practiced and generalised. We also feel there's an important measurement required in independence, so that the young people become less reliant on the staff member, helping them, and more reliant upon the visual information and build their own confidence. Over the years, we've put more emphasis on the importance of daily living skills and vocational application of skills. We really think that this will impact the quality of life post-Priors Court. The importance of data collection. At the organisation, we realised the importance and impact of good data collection. Collecting information regularly about each young person helps us to inform other key decisions. Having all the information in one place about one young person really helps form a picture and further understanding of needs. Having lots of paper records in different areas around each young person often means that we're not as effective with analysis. We collect all our information on a digital system, Prior Insight. Potentially, we can learn and make a lot of changes from the data we collect. For example, a young person might be struggling with certain times of their timetable, and we can make changes to suit them. They might not be eating food that helps sustain their energy levels. They might not be sleeping well, and they require more exercise or a more physical day. When a young person doesn't have a functional way to tell you what is wrong or how they feel about a situation, it's probably more important than ever that we do try to understand, and this can be done in many different ways, including data. On-site opportunity and training for work packages. To prepare young people for work, it was really important for us to consider that our learning framework had potential pathways into work. What skills would be needed? What interests and high emerging skills did our young people have? Some of the most successful areas have been horticulture and animal care. Many of our young people like to be out and about and busy and connecting in different ways. We recognise the high motivation of food, and the functional side of these skills has been used in Bread and Beyond, our fully functioning commercial bakery that currently trains about 20 young people. This was an opportunity that we felt was really important, but with that comes many challenges. Our young people have to learn about hygiene regimes, they have to learn about the safety and use of equipment, and they also have to learn not to eat chocolate when they're making the muffins. We don't stop thinking once we have an enterprise such as Bread and Beyond working. We're always thinking about what is next. We've planted an apple orchard ready for opportunities for apple juicing. It's in about year 3 of its growth, and at the moment where our young people are caring for the plants and the trees, later on it'll be part of picking the apples and making them ready for juicing. Having our own research board, as well as linking to key universities. At Priors Court, we have our own research board. The main purpose of this is to ensure we stay current with practice. We we are really keen to link with universities that are looking at autistic young people with complex needs. Our young people may not be able to represent themselves at different forums and conferences, but somebody has to be their voice. When involving ourselves in research, we really want to ensure that it aids further to our understanding and that we change our approach in line with that. We continue to link in with different universities and belong to forums across the UK to enable research to be shared. And finally, our very own Performing Arts Centre. This is the latest innovative idea that we have at Prize Court School. We want our very own performing arts for music, dance, movement and theatre. And it's to ensure that all young people are included in experiencing the arts and to support their creativity, their well-being, and to offer opportunities for themselves and families in celebrating huge achievements. We take it for granted that families can attend school performances or a night out to the theatre or as a group, but this is not always the case for many of our autistic young people with complex needs. The building itself can very much be a barrier to the performance itself. We want all the young people at Prize Court to have an opportunity to experience the arts, to be a part of being able to express themselves in many different ways. We already reach for the stars by writing and recording our very own song at Abbey Road, Let Me Shine. Now we are set to have a new building, the Let Me Shine Performing Arts Centre, which will be a unique area that supports many of the complex needs the young people have and facilitates some amazing opportunities. Inclusion in the arts for autistic people is not a privilege but a right. As you can see, we've worked really hard at Prize Court to make sure that we get things right for the young people that join us. The future is exciting, it has challenges, but we're all happy to go on that journey together, and I know that Ryan would like to talk more about that.
Thanks, Sue. 25 years, Prize Court's still quite a new organisation. Our founder's vision is still central to what we do. But we've all changed so much in that short time. The way that autism and autistic people are perceived by society feels like it's rapidly developing, sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. The recognition that difference does not mean that someone is worth less, despite some of the terminology and political discourse that still prevails, feels like it could be happening, at least in the more enlightened parts of society. For people like me who are responsible for delivering education and support, this field feels like it's still learning. Prize Court is certainly still learning. Where there is positive change, it has without any doubt been brought into being mainly by autistic people. They have been supported by allies, certainly, particularly families, and also professionals, where those professionals have been humble enough to listen. But this is a movement of and led by autistic people. The young people we work with are not fully part of this, I think, which is a view generally shared by their parents. It feels like they're excluded from the new acceptance. This is perhaps because they have needs related to things other than autism. They are autistic, they are also learning disabled to a level which is labelled profound and multiple learning disability. They're not the far end of the spectrum, though, as if they're somehow out of reach. They have multiple needs, some connected to autism, some to learning disability, some maybe to both, some maybe to neither. These people have a voice, though. It's a huge mistake to think that they don't. But they also need others to advocate for them and to help them stay safe. They may or may not be aware themselves of autism, the complexities of debate around autism, and the identity which they wish to have as an autistic person in society. And they may or may not be especially interested. Sometimes it's just not what's most important to them. What is certain, though, is that our society is not set up to embrace what autistic people with very complex needs have to offer, to provide the support they need to thrive or to appreciate them. Autistic young people with complex needs are threatened in a number of ways, by the lack of investment in special needs education and the extraordinary barriers which are put up to prevent parents accessing what their children need and have a legal right to, by a lack of knowledge within the system of this particular group of people, assuming they can get by on provision which is not suitable with their parents picking up the pieces, and they've been harmed by poor care and abuse, shown recently at the Hesley Homes in Doncaster. where children were isolated from their families and horrifically abused, and other horrible school practices, including restraint, seclusion, and psychological abuse, which have been exposed just in the last weeks. So what do we do about this? What's next for us to support these people, and what's next for Priors Court? Firstly, we share what we do. Steve, Dame Stephanie, said earlier that elements of the approach at Priors Court could work for all autistic children in education. And that's true, because some of the basics aren't being done everywhere. You've heard from Sue about our approach, the principles we try to operate to. We educate because we think everyone should have an education so they can get more out of their lives and the world. We don't train young people to appear less autistic. The everyday things that the autistic people in our school and adult learning use to regulate and be happy and comfortable, like physical exercise and jumping up and down, vocalizing, stimming, whatever it may be, we provide a framework around the person which always gives access to these healthy behaviours. Creating physical environments which can stimulate learning rather than stimulate distress can be achieved with the application of some relatively simple principles. Realising the creative potential of autistic young people and getting rid of the misconception that autistic people are not creative and cannot be entertained, we can support that and intend to through our inclusive performing arts curriculum. We want to better support families. Unusually, we're predominantly a residential school, although very few of the young people spend all of their time with us. They may be with us because the young person is too restricted at home in an environment which isn't adapted to their needs, or because they struggle with moving from one place to another, or because they need a level of waking night support which is difficult in the family home, and for many other reasons. But with all, a key aim is that we support family contact, enable the strengthening of family relationships and identity, and the love and nurturing which comes with that. If we don't achieve this, we've failed. And it seems to me that some organisations do fail in this. I hope we can have a role in stopping that. We've reached out to the Department for Education and local authorities about early intervention, not to reduce the number of EHCPs, although who knows, maybe it might a bit, but to avoid family crisis and prevent those crises becoming the prompt for things having to change. You heard Dame Stephanie disclose her good old-fashioned nervous breakdown. That's still not unusual, and in fact it's common, which it will be in a system where 75% of our admissions come from parents fighting a tribunal. Early intervention could ease that path by much better preparation of future support requirements. In order for people to get the support they need, we need to better ensure that their voices and interests are heard, give them the skills and opportunity to advocate for themselves, and teach them that they should be heard, that what they feel and want is important. We've reached out to other autism organisations who do advocacy work, who campaign, to work with them so the concerns and opinions of young people who do not speak in conventional voices are sought and understood. One of the things that parents say to me the most is that no one understands their children, even in the autism world. The word autism, for many of the people around them, their friends and colleagues, often conjures up an image of Chris Packham or Greta Thunberg, or of stereotypes like children who are good at maths and chess. These things are true for some people, and Greta and Chris are incredible role models, but that feels a million miles away for others. If we keep a group of people invisible or make them feel like they are somehow less, then how can we help them to make progress? And finally, we need to stop adult services squandering potential. There's a false belief that the pinnacle of a good life and the thing that makes the difference between a worthwhile life and a wasted one is paid employment. That any money spent on supporting and educating people which does not move that person towards earning their keep economically is money wasted. Now, this doesn't mean that autistic people can't work. It's ridiculous that so many autistic people who want to and can work cannot find work. That's about reasonable adjustments and prejudice. And it applies to some of our young people. They have skills to offer that should attract a wage. However, life isn't just about paid work. Most of the young people we work with will not take a paid job in adulthood. We don't make that assumption for them because some do work, but it is a fact that most will not, or at least not for a salary. That doesn't mean they don't contribute to society, that their lives aren't worthwhile, and that their education should not be funded. It doesn't mean that they can't perform meaningful activities from which they and other people gain fulfillment, whether it's helping community life through voluntary activities, maintaining a garden for them and their housemates to enjoy, being a caring friend. The list is as individual as the people themselves, and it's all precious. To help our young people achieve this, Prize Court needs to work with others much more. We exist for young people with very specific needs. I think we've maybe closed ourselves off from the wider autism world a bit, for that reason, kept ourselves apart. That's not okay. It could be preventing the young people at Prize Court benefiting from the changes that are happening and contributing towards them. We need to listen, to have humility, to show that what we believe we can offer, but admit we may well be wrong about some things and need to reflect or to change. Professionals like my staff team are amazing. I get to work with some incredibly expert and experienced staff, but the change that's happening is driven by people with lived experience, which needs to be equally true for services that serve those with higher levels of need. So our strategy for the next 3 years and beyond is to continue to do the best for the young people in our care so that they enjoy their childhood, adolescence and early adulthood and grow into the people they want to be. To prepare them for life so they grow their potential while they're with us and have the tools to continue growing throughout a lifetime. We will need to continually review our approach in order to achieve this and be open to challenge, just as we will challenge others. We want to share what we do, our models, frameworks and knowledge, and help adapt them to other needs and settings where they can be of benefit to autistic young people, to work more widely in education in partnership with others. We want to explore early intervention models and whole family support to reduce the trauma of unmet need and crisis. We want to develop better pathways from secondary to adult education and into adult living, learning and working, developing partnerships with providers of lifelong care and support. We aim to develop our work in facilitating the young people's voice and ensuring they're recognised and included in campaigning and other activities which impact on their lives. And finally, we still want to be here. So many schools and colleges for autistic people have closed in recent years. Very few people need the level of support we offer, but for those that do, the alternative is less than a full life. I'm going to hand you back to Dame Stephanie Shirley now for some closing thoughts.
The Prize Court team has told its story, past, present and future, the largest of my 3 autism charities, costing 30 million, including startup losses. We shall continue to contribute to special education practices that help very vulnerable children build brighter, more independent lives. It is crucial that all students, regardless of their abilities, receive tailored support to reach their full potential. In Prize Court, individual learning and living plans are facilitated by information technology so as to address diverse learning needs and challenges. Many of the Prize Court methodologies can be applied to enhance communication, social skills and independence in all autistic young people. By fostering inclusivity and equity, special education promotes a more diverse and empathetic society. The school's history shows the importance of learning from others and sharing experiences. Indeed, Sue Piper has clearly demonstrated the wealth of experience the school has garnered over its past 25 years, and she has shared her knowledge with a number of schools worldwide. Ryan Campbell holds the school's future in his capable hands. Certainly, it will involve skilled, trained staff using evidence-based practices to offer a supportive and inclusive environment. Helping a child grow and find their place in the world is something that really counts. So let me acknowledge the many people and organisations who have inspired, guided and driven Prize Court to its current outstanding position. We honour them, by striving for excellence in all that we do. Let us seize the opportunities to create a better world for all those with autism. Thank you.